Undercover black boss gets chicken sandwich, opens it, and immediately calls the kitchen staff. The rain drummed against the windows of Davis Express, the latest location of Malcolm Davis's growing fast food empire. Malcolm sat in his black sedan across the street, watching his employees through the glass doors. At 38, he'd built 12 successful locations from nothing, but tonight something felt different. Maybe it was the complaints he'd been getting, or maybe it was the nagging feeling that success had pulled him too far from the ground floor. He adjusted his baseball cap and pulled up his hoodie. The expensive suit was back home. Tonight, he was just another customer looking for a quick bite. The bell chimed as Malcolm entered the restaurant. The smell of fried food and cleaning solution filled his nostrils, but underneath it lurked something else, something slightly off that made him pause. He'd grown up in kitchens, worked his way from dishwasher to owner, and his nose never lied. "Welcome to Davis Express, can I take your order?" The teenage cashier's name tag read. Ashley. She looked tired, dark circles under her eyes despite it being only 7 p.m. Malcolm scanned the illuminated menu board above her head. "I'll take the signature crispy chicken sandwich, large fries, and a Coke. That'll be $12.47. He handed over exact change, studying Ashley's movements. She seemed nervous, constantly glancing toward the kitchen where he could hear muffled voices and the sizzle of oil. The restaurant wasn't busy, only 3 other customers sat scattered across the dining area, but the staff moved with an urgency that didn't match the pace. "Order 47, someone called from the kitchen. Ashley grabbed the brown bag and set it on the counter. "Here you go, sir. Have a great evening." Malcolm found a booth near the window and unwrapped his sandwich. The moment the paper fell away, that strange smell hit him again, stronger now, sour and unmistakable. He'd built his reputation on quality, on chicken so fresh it practically fell off the bone. This wasn't that. He lifted the top bun. The chicken breast looked wrong, grayish around the edges, with a rubbery texture that made his stomach turn. The smell was definitely off, like meat that had been sitting too long. Malcolm had seen enough bad food in his early restaurant jobs to recognize the signs. This wasn't just a bad batch. This was dangerous. Instead of storming to the counter like every instinct told him to do, Malcolm took a deep breath. He needed to understand what was happening here, and causing a scene wouldn't get him answers. He walked back to Ashley, putting on his most concerned customer voice. "Excuse me, I'm really sorry to bother you, but I have some pretty serious food allergies." He lied smoothly. "I opened my sandwich and the chicken looks a little off. I'm not trying to cause trouble, but could I maybe speak to someone in the kitchen? Just to make sure it's safe for me to eat." Ashley's face went pale. She glanced toward the kitchen again, then back at Malcolm. "Oh no, I'm so sorry. Let me get someone for you." She disappeared into the back, and Malcolm could hear hushed, urgent whispers. After a few minutes, a young man emerged, wearing a stained apron and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. His name tag read, "Jalen." "Hi, Ashley said you had questions about the chicken?" Jalen's voice cracked slightly. He couldn't have been older than 20. Malcolm held up the sandwich. "Yeah, I've got some allergies and this chicken looks a little discolored. I just want to make sure it's fresh before I eat it." Jalen's eyes darted to the sandwich, then quickly away. "Oh, that's normal. Sometimes the lighting makes it look different." "Really? Because I eat a lot of chicken and this smell." Malcolm took another whiff and grimaced genuinely. "This doesn't smell right to me. I can get you a new sandwich," Jalen said quickly. "No problem at all." "That's kind, but I'm really worried about cross-contamination with my allergies. Would it be possible for me to just take a quick look at where the chicken is stored? I know it's unusual, but I've had some bad reactions before." Jalen looked terrified. I can't really let customers in the kitchen area. Health code stuff, you know?" Malcolm nodded understandingly, but pressed gently. "I totally get that. Maybe you could just show me the packaging the chicken came from? Sometimes the date codes help me figure out if there might be any cross-contamination issues." The color drained from Jalen's face completely. Let me ask my manager. As Jalen hurried back to the kitchen, Malcolm caught a glimpse through the service window. What he saw made his blood run cold. Stacked on the prep counter were several packages of chicken, and even from here, he could see the dates on the labels, and they were definitely not from today. Through the kitchen doorway, he could hear fragments of a heated whispered conversation. Told you to get rid of. Can't just throw away. Boss will finish us if we waste. Malcolm's jaw tightened. He built his business on 3 principles: quality food, fair treatment of employees, and absolute transparency. If what he was beginning to suspect was true, someone was violating all 3. Jalen returned, looking even more nervous than before. My manager isn't available right now, but I can definitely get you a fresh sandwich. We'll make it special, just for you. That's very kind, Malcolm said, maintaining his concerned customer persona. But honestly, I'm getting pretty worried about the smell. Could you just show me 1 package of chicken? Just so I can see the processing date? Jalen glanced around the restaurant, then seemed to make a decision. Okay, but just really quick, and you can't go past the doorway. Malcolm followed him to the edge of the kitchen, where Jalen picked up one of the packages from the prep counter. The moment Malcolm saw the label, his worst fears were confirmed. The chicken was dated 8 days ago, well past any reasonable use-by period. This is from last week, Malcolm said quietly. Jalen's hands shook as he put the package down. Look, I don't want any trouble. I just do what I'm told. What you're told by who? Before Jalen could answer, another voice called from the back office. Jalen! What's taking so long? A man emerged from the office, tall, well-dressed, with the kind of confident stride that came from authority. His name tag identified him as Carl, branch manager. He took in the scene quickly, Malcolm at the kitchen entrance, Jalen holding expired chicken, and the unmistakable tension in the air. Is there a problem here? Carl asked, his voice smooth but with an edge. Malcolm held up his sandwich again. I was just concerned about the freshness of the chicken. I have some food allergies. Carl's eyes flicked to the sandwich, then to Jalen, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Oh, that's no problem at all. Jalen, get this gentleman a fresh sandwich immediately. Actually, Malcolm said, I was hoping to understand what happened with this one. The chicken is clearly expired. Carl's expression didn't change, but Malcolm caught something in his eyes, a flash of anger, quickly controlled. I assure you, sir, all our food meets the highest safety standards. Sometimes chicken can look a little different due to natural variations in processing. Natural variations don't make chicken smell sour, Malcolm replied evenly. I think there might be some confusion here, Carl said, his smile never wavering. Why don't I comp your entire meal and throw in some extras? We pride ourselves on customer satisfaction. Malcolm looked around the kitchen area, taking in details he'd missed before. The expired chicken packages. The nervous staff. The way everyone seemed to defer to Carl was something that looked like fear rather than respect. And in the corner, near the walk-in cooler, he spotted something that made his heart sink. More packages of chicken, these even older, some with dates going back almost 2 weeks. This wasn't just one bad package. This was systematic. You know what? Malcolm said, putting his sandwich down on the counter. I think I'm going to pass on dinner tonight. But I'll definitely be back. Carl's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course. We'll be here. As Malcolm walked out of the restaurant, his mind was racing. This was his business, his name on the sign, his reputation on the line. But more than that, people could get seriously sick from what he'd just seen. The question wasn't whether he'd be back. It was how he was going to handle what came next. Behind him, through the glass door, he could see Carl talking animatedly to Jalen, who looked like he was getting the lecture of his life. Malcolm pulled out his phone and started making calls. Tomorrow was going to be a very different kind of day at Davis Express. The rain had stopped, but Malcolm sat in his car for another 10 minutes, watching his restaurant and thinking about how a simple chicken sandwich had just changed everything. Malcolm didn't sleep that night. He kept thinking about Jalen's terrified face and the way Carl had smoothly deflected every concern. By 6 a.m., he was already dressed and heading back to the restaurant, but this time he had a plan. He parked around the corner and walked to the employee entrance at the back of the building. The morning prep shift would be starting soon, and he wanted to see what happened when Carl wasn't around to control the narrative. Through the small window in the back door, Malcolm could see Jalen and 2 other employees prepping for the day. They moved quietly, efficiently, but there was something about their body language that bothered him. They kept glancing toward the office, even though it was empty. Malcolm knocked softly on the door. When Jalen opened it, his face went white. "Oh no, you're that customer from last night," Jalen stammered. "I am," Malcolm said gently. "And I'm worried about you." "About me?" Jalen looked confused and scared. "Can I come in for just a minute? I promise I'm not here to cause trouble for you." Jalen glanced at his coworkers, then reluctantly stepped aside. Malcolm entered the kitchen and was immediately hit by that same sour smell, stronger now in the enclosed space. "Jalen, how long have you been working here?" Malcolm asked. "About 8 months," Jalen replied, still looking like he might bolt at any second. "And how long has the chicken been like this?" The 2 other employees, a middle-aged woman named Rosa and a young man named Kevin, exchanged worried looks. Rosa spoke up first. "Look, mister, we don't want any trouble. We just do what we're told." "What exactly are you told to do?" Malcolm asked. Kevin laughed bitterly. "Use everything. Don't waste anything. If it's not green and fuzzy, it goes out to customers." "That's not true," Jalen said quickly, but his voice lacked conviction. Malcolm walked over to the walk-in cooler. "Can I see what you're working with today?" The 3 employees looked at each other nervously, but Rosa finally nodded. "You're gonna find out anyway when you get sick." Malcolm opened the cooler door and his heart sank. The shelves were packed with chicken packages, many with dates going back over a week. Some were pushing 2 weeks old. The smell was overwhelming. "This is criminal," Malcolm said quietly. "It's survival," Rosa replied. "You think we want to serve this stuff? You think we want to put our names on food that could make people sick? Then why do you do it?" Jalen's voice was barely a whisper. "Because Carl says if we waste food, we're stealing from the company. And if we steal from the company, we're gone. He records everything," Kevin added. "How much we throw away, how much we use. If our waste numbers are too high, we get written up." Malcolm felt sick. "What about the health inspector?" Rosa laughed humorlessly. "Carl gets a heads up when they're coming. Day before inspection, everything gets cleaned out. Fresh chicken, spotless kitchen, perfect records. Soon as they leave, we're back to this." "But someone could die from this," Malcolm said. "You think we don't know that?" Jalen's voice cracked. "I've got a baby at home. I need this job. But every night I go home wondering if I helped poison someone's kid." Malcolm pulled out his phone and started taking pictures of the expired chicken. The employees panicked. No, you can't do that." Kevin grabbed for the phone. "Carl will know it came from us. He checks the security cameras every morning," Rosa explained. "If he sees you in here with us, we're all fired." Malcolm lowered his phone. "What if I told you there was a way to fix this without you losing your jobs?" "There isn't," Jalen said flatly. "Carl's got the district manager in his pocket. His numbers look great because he cuts costs everywhere. Nobody cares how he does it." "What do you mean, in his pocket?" Rosa looked around nervously. "Carl takes the district manager to expensive dinners, sends him gift cards, that kind of thing. Last month, when someone complained about food poisoning, Carl handled it quietly. Gave the customer free meals for a month and made the whole thing disappear." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "Someone got food poisoning?" "A little girl," Kevin said quietly. "Her mom brought her in, said she'd been sick for 3 days after eating here. Carl convinced her it was probably something else, gave her a bunch of free food vouchers. "Where's Carl now?" Malcolm asked. "He comes in around 9, Jalen said. "But please, you can't let him know we talked to you. He'll find a way to get rid of us." Malcolm looked at the 3 employees, young people trying to make an honest living, caught between doing what's right and keeping their jobs. His anger wasn't at them anymore. It was at the system that had put them in this impossible position. "I need you to do something for me," Malcolm said. "I need you to keep track of what Carl tells you to do. Write it down, record it if you can. Can you do that?" "Why?" Rosa asked suspiciously. "Because someone needs to be held accountable for this. And it's not going to be you." As Malcolm headed for the door, Jalen called out softly, "Mister? What if this gets worse before it gets better?" Malcolm turned back. "Then we make sure it gets better fast." He left through the back door, his mind already working on the next phase of his plan. But as he walked to his car, he couldn't shake the image of those 3 employees, trapped between their conscience and their paychecks, serving food they knew could hurt people. Carl had built his success on their fear. It was time to change that equation. Malcolm spent the next 2 hours in his car, making calls and setting up surveillance. By 8:45 a.m., he was back inside Davis Express, this time sitting in a corner booth with a clear view of the kitchen. He'd ordered just a coffee and positioned himself to watch Carl's morning routine. At exactly 9 a.m., Carl walked through the front door like he owned the place. He was impeccably dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks, his smile bright and confident as he greeted the morning customers. But the moment he disappeared into the kitchen, Malcolm heard his voice change completely. "Jalen! Kevin! Get over here, now!" Malcolm couldn't see what was happening, but he could hear every word through the service window. "I just checked yesterday's waste report." Carl's voice was cold, authoritative. "We threw away 12 pounds of chicken. 12 pounds! Do you have any idea what that cost the company?" "But Carl, some of it was really..." Jalen started. "Really what? Really expensive? Really cutting into my bonus?" Carl's voice rose. "I don't care if it was green and growing legs, Jalen. We use what we have." Malcolm pulled out his phone and started recording, holding it low so Carl wouldn't notice. "I've told you people 100 times," Carl continued. "Waste is theft. When you throw away perfectly good product, you're stealing money from this company. And when you steal from this company, you steal from me. Carl, that chicken was dated over a week ago." Rosa's voice, barely audible. "Dates are suggestions, Rosa. Suggestions. You think people ate chicken for thousands of years by looking at plastic labels?" Carl's laugh was harsh. "I've been in this business for 15 years. I know what real spoilage looks like." Malcolm watched as Carl emerged from the kitchen, grabbed a clipboard from behind the counter, and went back to continue his lecture. "Look at these numbers," Carl said. "Our food costs are still too high. Corporate wants to see 12%, we're running 14%. That difference comes out of everybody's hours, everybody's raises, everybody's job security." "But what if someone gets sick?" Kevin asked quietly. The restaurant went silent for a moment. Then Carl's voice came back, lower and more menacing. "Kevin, let me explain something to you. People get sick all the time. Stomach bugs, viruses, something they ate at home. You think every customer who claims food poisoning really got it here? Half of them are looking for free meals." Malcolm's hands clenched around his coffee cup. "Besides," Carl continued, "even if someone did get a little queasy, what's the worst that happens? They complain, we give them some coupons, everyone moves on. But if we keep wasting food like this, you know what happens? This location gets shut down. All of you lose your jobs. Your families lose their income. Is that what you want?" "No, sir," came a chorus of subdued voices. "Good. Now I want to see those waste numbers cut in half by next week. And if anyone has a problem with that, there are plenty of people looking for work who won't question my management." Malcolm heard footsteps and quickly pretended to be reading something on his phone as Carl walked past his booth. Carl's demeanor had shifted again. He was smiling, nodding at customers, playing the role of the friendly manager. But Malcolm had heard enough. He waited another 20 minutes, then approached the counter where Ashley was working. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "Is your manager available? I'd like to speak with him about last night." Ashley looked terrified. About last night? The chicken sandwich issue," Malcolm clarified. Oh, yes, let me get him." Carl appeared within seconds, that same smooth smile from the night before. "Well, hello again. I hope you decided to give us another chance." "Actually, I wanted to follow up on our conversation," Malcolm said. "I've been thinking about what happened, and I'm a little concerned." Carl guided him away from the other customers, speaking in a low, confidential tone. "Listen, I completely understand your concern. Between you and me, we had a new guy working last night who might have gotten a little careless with the rotation. It's completely handled now." "Rotation?" "First in, first out. Basic food service. Sometimes the newer employees don't quite grasp the system." Carl's explanation sounded practiced, smooth. "I can assure you, it was an isolated incident." Malcolm nodded thoughtfully. "And what happens to employees who don't follow the rotation properly?" "Well, we retrain them, of course. But if someone consistently puts customer safety at risk..." Carl shrugged. "We have to make tough decisions sometimes." "Tough decisions like what?" Carl's smile never wavered, but Malcolm caught something cold in his eyes. "Like I said, customer safety is our top priority. Employees who can't meet that standard don't belong in food service." Through the service window, Malcolm could see Jalen working frantically, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool morning air. Rosa was moving with the mechanical precision of someone who'd given up fighting a system they couldn't beat. "I appreciate you taking the time to explain," Malcolm said. "It's clear you run a tight ship here." "I believe in accountability," Carl replied. "Everyone from the top down needs to understand their role in our success." Malcolm nodded and headed for the door, but Carl's voice stopped him. "I hope this experience won't keep you from coming back. We really do pride ourselves on customer satisfaction." "Oh, I'll definitely be back," Malcolm said. "Probably sooner than you think." As Malcolm walked to his car, he could see Carl through the window, already heading back to the kitchen. Within seconds, he heard the manager's voice again, sharper now. "All right, people, let's talk about yesterday's performance." Malcolm sat in his car and listened to Carl systematically break down his employees' confidence, turning food safety into a threat to their livelihoods. Every word was being recorded, every manipulation documented. Tomorrow, Carl's reign of fear would come to an end. But tonight, Malcolm had to live with the knowledge that his own employees were going home terrified of doing the right thing. The system was more broken than he'd imagined. But at least now he knew exactly how to fix it. The next morning, Malcolm arrived at Davis Express at 10:30 a.m., but this time he wasn't alone. Beside him walked Sarah Chin, his head of operations, and David Rodriguez, the company's food safety inspector. Both carried clipboards and wore the serious expressions of people on official business. Carl was behind the counter when they entered, chatting with a customer about the weather. The moment he saw Malcolm with two corporate-looking individuals, his face went pale before quickly recovering with that practiced smile. "Good morning! Welcome to Davis Express," Carl said, his voice slightly higher than usual. "Good morning, Carl," Malcolm said, stepping forward. "I'm Malcolm Davis, owner of this restaurant chain. I believe we need to talk." The color drained completely from Carl's face. Around the restaurant, customers looked up from their meals, sensing the sudden tension. Behind the counter, Malcolm could see Jalen freeze mid-motion, a package of chicken in his hands. "Mr. Davis," Carl stammered, then quickly composed himself. "What an honor! I had no idea you were planning a visit. If I'd known, I would have prepared." "That's exactly why I didn't call ahead," Malcolm interrupted. "Sarah, David, let's start with the kitchen." Carl stepped forward quickly. Of course. Though I should mention, we're right in the middle of lunch prep, so things might look a little chaotic. That's fine, Sarah said curtly, pulling out her tablet. We prefer to see normal operations. As they walked toward the kitchen, Malcolm caught Jalen's eye. The young man looked terrified, but Malcolm gave him a subtle nod. It was time. David immediately went to the walk-in cooler while Sarah began examining the prep stations. Carl hovered nervously, trying to maintain his confident demeanor. As you can see, we maintain the highest standards, Carl said, gesturing around the kitchen. Our waste numbers are some of the best in the district. About those waste numbers, Malcolm said, pulling out his phone. I'd like you to listen to something. He pressed play on yesterday's recording. Carl's voice filled the kitchen. Dates are suggestions, Rosa. Suggestions? You think people ate chicken for thousands of years by looking at plastic labels? Carl's face went white. That's taken out of context. Really? Malcolm scrolled to another recording. Waste is theft. When you throw away perfectly good product, you're stealing money from this company. Mr. Davis, if you'd let me explain. David, what are you finding? Malcolm called out. David emerged from the cooler, his expression grim. Multiple packages of chicken dated between 8 and 14 days ago. Some of this product is showing clear signs of spoilage. That's impossible, Carl said quickly. We rotate everything according to company policy. Sarah looked up from a prep station where she'd been examining chicken that was clearly discolored. Carl, this chicken is visibly bad. The smell is unmistakable. There must be some mistake, Carl insisted, but sweat was beading on his forehead. Perhaps someone made an error in the rotation. Stop. The voice came from behind them. Jalen stepped forward, his hands shaking but his voice steady. Just stop lying. Carl spun around. Jalen, get back to work. This doesn't concern you. It does concern me, Jalen said, his voice growing stronger. Because I'm the one who has to serve this garbage to people. I'm the one who goes home every night wondering if I poisoned someone's kid. Jalen, be very careful, Carl warned, his friendly mask slipping completely. You know what happens to employees who what? Malcolm stepped between them. Who tell the truth? Who prioritize customer safety over your bonus? Rosa and Kevin had stopped working entirely, watching the confrontation unfold. Other employees from the front counter had gathered at the kitchen entrance. You want to know what Carl does? Jalen's voice cracked with emotion. He threatens us. Every single day. Use the old chicken or lose your job. Don't waste food or get written up. He records our conversations, watches us on cameras, makes us feel like criminals for wanting to throw away rotten meat. That's enough, Carl snapped. Jalen, you're fired. Clean out your locker and get out. No, Malcolm said firmly. He's not. Carl turned to Malcolm, desperation creeping into his voice. Mr. Davis, you don't understand the pressures we face here. Food costs, labor costs, corporate expectations. I understand perfectly, Malcolm replied. I also understand that you've been systematically endangering our customers and terrorizing our employees. Sarah held up her tablet. I've documented 17 separate food safety violations just in the past 15 minutes. The health department will need to be notified immediately. Wait, Carl said, his composure finally cracking completely. Let's not involve the health department. We can fix this internally. I can have this place cleaned up by tomorrow. The way you cleaned up before the last health inspection? Malcolm asked. The way you hid evidence and then went right back to serving expired food? Carl's mouth opened and closed like a fish. How did you? Because I've been watching, Carl. Recording. Documenting. Just like you do to your employees, except I was gathering evidence of actual crimes. Rosa stepped forward, tears in her eyes. He made us feel like we were the problem. Like caring about food safety made us bad employees. I've got grandchildren who eat at restaurants like this. Kevin nodded. He said if we complained, we'd be replaced by people who understood the business better. And the district manager? Malcolm asked. Carl's face went ashen. I don't know what you mean. The expensive dinners. The gift cards. The way complaints mysteriously disappear. Mr. Davis, I can explain everything, Carl pleaded. I was trying to protect the company's reputation. By bribing officials and covering up food poisoning? Malcolm's voice was ice cold. By creating a culture where employees are afraid to do their jobs ethically? Sarah finished documenting the violations and looked up. I've never seen anything this systematic. This isn't corner cutting, it's criminal negligence. Malcolm looked around the kitchen at his employees. People who'd been trapped between their conscience and their paychecks, forced to choose between doing right and feeding their families. Carl, you're done, Malcolm said quietly. Security will escort you out. Don't bother cleaning out your office. We'll mail you whatever personal items we find. Mr. Davis, please. Get out of my restaurant. As Carl was escorted through the dining room, the remaining employees stood in stunned silence. Jalen was crying, Rosa was shaking, and Kevin looked like he couldn't believe it was over. Malcolm turned to face them. We need to talk. The dining room had gone completely quiet. Customers watched as Carl was escorted to his car, confusion and whispers filling the space. Malcolm asked Sarah to handle the front area while he gathered his kitchen staff. Everyone, please sit down, Malcolm said, gesturing to the small break room behind the kitchen. Jalen, Rosa, Kevin, and 2 other employees squeezed around the worn table. Their faces showed a mixture of relief, fear, and exhaustion. Malcolm pulled up a chair and sat at their level, not standing over them like a typical boss meeting. First, he said quietly, I want to apologize to each of you. As the owner of this company, I failed you. I let you work in an environment where doing the right thing felt impossible. That's on me, not on you. Rosa wiped her eyes with her apron. Mr. Davis, we should have said something sooner. No, Malcolm interrupted firmly. You shouldn't have had to. You were put in an impossible position by someone who abused his authority. You were trying to keep your jobs to feed your families. I understand that. Jalen looked up, his voice shaky. Are we all fired? I mean, we did serve the bad food. We knew it was wrong. Malcolm leaned forward. Jalen, let me ask you something. When I came in asking questions, what was your first instinct? To tell the truth, Jalen said immediately. But Carl always said. Carl is gone, Malcolm said. And he's never coming back to any Davis Express location. Now, what was your first instinct when you saw that expired chicken? To throw it away, Rosa answered. Every time. It made me sick to serve it. Kevin, when you heard about that little girl getting food poisoning, how did you feel? Kevin's voice cracked. Like we were monsters. Like we were hurting kids for money. Malcolm nodded. Those reactions, wanting to tell the truth, wanting to protect customers, feeling sick about serving bad food, those are the reactions of good people. People I want working for me. The room was silent except for Rosa quietly crying. Here's what's going to happen, Malcolm continued. First, we're shutting down for the rest of today and tomorrow to completely clean and restock this kitchen. Every piece of food gets thrown out and replaced. What about the lost sales? Kevin asked. Let me worry about lost sales. Your job is to worry about food safety. Second, Jalen, I'm promoting you to assistant kitchen manager, effective immediately. That comes with a $3 an hour raise. Jalen's mouth fell open. But I'm only 20. You're 20 years old and you stood up to a bully who was twice your size and had power over your paycheck. That took more courage than most people show in a lifetime. Malcolm turned to Rosa. Rosa, I'm making you head of food safety compliance. You'll have authority to throw away any food you're not completely confident about, no questions asked. That also comes with a raise. Mr. Davis, Rosa said, tears flowing freely now. I can't believe this is real. It's real. And Kevin, you're now our inventory manager. Your job is to make sure we order fresh products and rotate them properly. Also a raise. Malcolm stood up and walked to a flip chart on the wall. Now, let's talk about the new rules. He wrote as he spoke. First, food safety comes before profit, always. Second, any employee can stop service if they have safety concerns. Third, we're implementing an anonymous reporting system where you can report problems without fear of retaliation. What if the new manager doesn't like the reporting system? Jalen asked. There won't be a new manager for a while. Sarah Chin will be running this location directly until we find the right person. And whoever we hire will be trained on these principles first. Malcolm turned back to face them. I'm also instituting a new bonus system. Instead of bonuses for low waste numbers, management gets bonuses for high customer satisfaction and zero safety violations. We're going to reward doing the right thing. Ashley, who had been quietly listening from the doorway, raised her hand tentatively. Mr. Davis? What about the customers today? Some of them might have eaten the bad chicken. Malcolm's expression grew serious. Good question, Ashley. We're going to contact everyone who made purchases in the last week. We'll offer free medical checkups and cover any treatment if anyone got sick. It's the right thing to do. That's going to cost a fortune, Kevin said. Less than a lawsuit. And more importantly, it's what you do when you've failed your customers. Malcolm walked over to a cabinet and pulled out a stack of papers. These are new employee handbooks. They outline your rights, including the right to refuse unsafe orders from any manager, including me. Jalen flipped through his copy, amazed. This says we can't be fired for refusing to serve expired food. That's right. In writing, signed by me, and filed with corporate HR. Rosa looked up from her handbook. Why are you doing all this? Wouldn't it be easier to just fire us and start over? Malcolm sat back down, his voice softer now. Because you're good people who were put in a bad situation. Because Jalen had the courage to speak up when it mattered. Because Rosa, you've been fighting your conscience every day, and that means your conscience still works. Because Kevin asked about the customers who might be sick, which shows you care about people, not just paychecks. He paused, looking around the room. But mostly because this is my company, my name on the building, and my responsibility to make sure you can be proud of the work you do here. Ashley cleared her throat. Mr. Davis, what about the other locations? Could this be happening there too? Malcolm's jaw tightened. That's exactly what we're going to find out. Sarah and I are visiting every location this week. Unannounced. As the meeting ended, Malcolm shook hands with each employee. When he got to Jalen, the young man looked him in the eye. Mr. Davis, why did you come back that night? Really? Malcolm smiled. Because sometimes the boss needs to remember what it's like to be a customer. And sometimes, he paused, he needs to remember what it's like to have a conscience. Outside, Sarah was supervising the disposal of all the expired food. Malcolm watched through the window as bag after bag of rotten chicken was loaded into a disposal truck. It was going to be an expensive day. But it was also the first day his employees could go home proud of their work. That was worth everything. 3 months later, Malcolm sat in the same corner booth where he'd first overheard Carl's threats. But everything else had changed. The restaurant hummed with a different energy now. Behind the counter, Jalen moved with the confidence of someone who knew his voice mattered. He was training 2 new hires, patiently explaining the importance of temperature checks and rotation dates. See this chicken? Jalen said, holding up a package. Dated yesterday, but it doesn't smell right to me. What do we do? Throw it out. One of the new employees answered immediately. Exactly. When in doubt, we protect our customers. That's not wasteful, that's professional. Malcolm smiled, remembering how different those words sounded from the fear-filled whispers he'd heard months ago. Rosa approached his table, carrying a clipboard and wearing a name tag that read, Food Safety Manager. Her shoulders were straight, her smile genuine. Mr. Davis, your usual? She asked. The signature crispy chicken sandwich, he replied. And Rosa, how are the new protocols working? Like a dream, she said, her voice full of pride. We haven't had a single safety violation since reopening. And you know what? Our food costs are actually lower than before. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. How's that possible? Turns out when you rotate properly and store things correctly, you actually waste less, Rosa explained. Who knew, right? They both laughed, but Malcolm caught the deeper meaning. Fear and intimidation had actually created more waste, not less. Good management had solved the problem Carl claimed to be fighting. Ashley brought his order to the table. She was studying business management at the local community college now, with tuition assistance from the company's new education program. Malcolm unwrapped his sandwich and took a bite. The chicken was perfectly seasoned, tender, and fresh. He could taste the difference, not just in the food, but in the care that went into making it. Through the service window, he watched Kevin checking expiration dates with the methodical precision of someone who took his job seriously. When Kevin found a package that was close to its date, he didn't hesitate to set it aside for immediate use, making sure nothing good went to waste while nothing questionable reached customers. The lunch rush began, and Malcolm marveled at how smoothly everything ran. Orders moved quickly, but no one looked stressed or fearful. When a customer asked about ingredients due to allergies, the staff took time to double-check everything carefully. "Excuse me, are you Malcolm Davis?" Malcolm looked up to see a middle-aged woman with a young girl, maybe 8 years old, standing beside his table. "I am," he said, standing up. "How can I help you?" "I'm Maria Santos," the woman said. "This is my daughter Sophia. She was the little girl who got sick here a few months ago." Malcolm's heart sank. "Mrs. Santos, I am so sorry about what happened to Sophia. I hope she's feeling better now." "She is, thank you. But that's not why we're here." Maria's voice was warm, not angry. "We came back because we heard about all the changes you made. About how you stood up for your employees and put safety first." Malcolm knelt down to Sophia's level. "Hi Sophia, how are you feeling?" "Much better," Sophia said shyly. "My mom says you made sure other kids won't get sick like I did." "That's right," Malcolm said softly. "I'm very sorry you got sick, and I promise it won't happen again." Maria continued. "We wanted to thank you. Not many business owners would have handled it the way you did. Most would have covered it up or blamed the employees." "The employees were never the problem," Malcolm said firmly. "They were the solution." As the Santos family enjoyed their meal, Malcolm reflected on the past 3 months. The investigation of other locations had uncovered 2 more managers using similar tactics, both immediately fired. The new policies had been implemented company-wide, and customer satisfaction scores were at an all-time high. More importantly, turnover was down 70%. Employees who felt valued and protected stayed longer, worked harder, and took pride in their jobs. Jalen approached his table, now wearing the confident smile of someone who knew he was making a difference. "Mr. Davis, we just got our quarterly customer feedback reports," Jalen said, handing him a tablet. "Want to see?" Malcolm scrolled through the comments. "Best food quality I've ever had at a fast food place. Staff clearly cares about what they're doing. Clean, fresh, professional service. This is incredible, Jalen." "It gets better," Jalen said, grinning. 3 other restaurant chains have contacted us asking about our employee protection policies. They want to implement similar programs." Malcolm looked around his restaurant, his employees working with pride, customers enjoying safe food, a culture built on respect rather than fear. The financial cost of the changes had been significant, but the returns were already evident. "You know what, Jalen? I think we started something bigger than just fixing one restaurant." "Yes, sir, we did. And it all started with a chicken sandwich that smelled wrong." Malcolm laughed. Sometimes the smallest things reveal the biggest problems. As the afternoon wore on, Malcolm finished his perfectly prepared meal and prepared to leave. But first, he walked back to the kitchen to thank his team. "Keep up the great work," he told them. "You're not just serving food, you're showing other businesses how to do things right." Walking to his car, Malcolm felt something he hadn't experienced in months: complete pride in his company. Not just the profits or the growth, but the knowledge that every person wearing a Davis Express uniform could go home knowing they'd done honest, dignified work. Sometimes the best business decision is simply doing the right thing. And sometimes, the most important ingredient in any recipe is respect.